our challenges that we face in life are some of the most beautiful and most powerful catalysts that we have to change. And with the right conversation that we have with ourselves, we can rise up and get stronger because of our challenges.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Michael O'Brien. Previously, episode 713 of the 12-Minute Converse podcast. It's been just 3 years, 1 day, 21 hours, and 45 minutes since we last recorded that conversation.
Working hard today to make tomorrow better. Really trying to push forward that persistence, that grit, so I can become better as a person, so I can help make those around me better.
That was then. This is now. Michael, how are you doing today?
Good, Angel. So great to be with you. When you said that 3 years, that is amazing how quickly time has flown by.
Well, I'm guessing there are many things that you've been able to accomplish. The last time we spoke, you were doing executive coaching for leaders. Of course, you got over what happened in July 11, 2001, your last bad day, right? With that bicycle accident. How have things evolved for you today?
So, in so many magical ways. Although at times I didn't know why I lived because the doctors were amazed that I survived my accident with that SUV. What I call was, you mentioned, my last bad day. But I've just stepped into all the different possibilities. So I'm still doing executive coaching, but what's happened over the last 3 years is I finally released my memoir about that day, and I share my journey with the readers in 20 ways that they can be in life, be present, and show up. And recently I just came out with my second book. Now I can say I think I'm an official author. The second book is all about how to prevent those bad moments that we all experience from gaining any additional momentum and turning into a bad day. So it's more of a how-to guide from my memoir. So I'm doing that and speaking, and I have this quest to help 1 million people, hopefully over 1 million people, have their last bad day. For me, it's that day where you decide to live life differently on your own terms.
Now, the name of your company is the Peloton Coaching and Consulting. You chose the name Peloton because of what it means, I would think. Is it?
Yeah, so the Peloton is a group of cyclists in a bike race. And even though that they have different teams within that group of cyclists, they need each other. They need trust and collaboration and communication to go down the road as fast as possible. So when I was in the hospital, I looked around at all my medical team, all different departments of the hospital, and I was like, hey, you guys are like my medical Peloton. And then the light bulb went off. I'm like, that's the name of my company one day when I leave my corporate job and I start doing executive coaching. So I use it now as a metaphor for tribes, for family, for culture, that we are all in this together. And when we communicate and trust and love one another, we can get so much more done in the world.
What's beautiful about your business model is that it stems from a challenge. It stems from something that could have stopped you. It stems from something that could have been your death story. Nevertheless, instead of separating yourself from it, you've decided to build upon it. How beneficial has that been?
Extremely beneficial. I think it changes the conversation, of course, you have with yourself. My early days, the conversation I was having right after my accident was I was a victim. And then someone told me, hey, Michael, all the events in your life are neutral until you label them. And in that moment, Angela, I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then I realized, yeah, we're so quick at labeling our life events. And he further shared, say, hey, you get to choose your label with this. So that helped me change my narrative about what happened. And so I was able to rise up and then go back to my corporate job under my own terms with my own script, and then start doing this to help other people, help other corporate leaders do the same with hopefully avoiding their version of an SUV. So I think our challenges that we face in life are some of the most beautiful and most powerful catalysts that we have to change. And with the right Peloton behind us, with the right conversation that we have with ourselves, we can rise up and get stronger because of our challenges. And that's what I leaned into all those years ago. And I continue to do it today. Like each day is a day of discipline. It's a day of intention of how do I want to show up and what type of ripple do I want to put out there into the world.
Facing the possibility of your body not being able to be 100% the way it was, a fit cyclist compared to who knows what. How did the spiritual side of you stand in the midst of that when your physical body wasn't able to?
So that was tough because I had a big part of my identity before my accident on being an athlete. And the doctors painted a pretty grim picture of my prognosis going forward, sort of a lifetime of more pain and suffering. And you're like, hey, you're not going to probably run ever again. You may not ever ride your bike ever again. Walking is going to be difficult. So there were times where I wondered, like, if I can't be who I was, who am I going to be? And that required a lot of like inner work and connection with sort of spirituality and energy around, well, now there's an opportunity not to focus on what I didn't have and couldn't do anymore, but what I still could do, that I still could have in my life, and use those as building blocks. I think one of the big things I found through my recovery, I really credit it for almost 80% of my success since that last bad day, is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude for the things that are going well in my life, but also the gratitude for some of our struggles, because I know this now, that the struggles can make me even better. And then I can share that wisdom with others to help them get better as well.
Having 2 daughters, being married for what is about, from my calculations of our last conversation, 26 years?
Yeah, coming up. Yeah, so 25 years last May, 26 years as we come into 2020. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. My wife is the head of my Peloton.
How have they been impacted from going forward in their lives from seeing what you've done? Of course, understanding that more is caught than taught.
I would say what I see in my daughters is this thread of resilience, that they can accomplish things even when they're faced with a challenge. So I see that in them. They're not my little girls anymore. They're women. They're 19 and 22, and they're incredibly empathetic and want to put out goodness in the world and build their own version of a Peloton. So they were really young at the time of my accident. My youngest, Grady, was only 7 months old, and Elle was 3.5 years old. So Grady doesn't even remember pre-accident dad. Elle sort of does. And they helped me see some things in me that I couldn't see initially. Like, I have a whole bunch of scars from my accident. And Grady was the first person that helped me love my scars. And the whole concept of like wabi-sabi or kintsugi, where it's like broken and better, that she was like, I love your scars, Dad. It tells like a wonderful story. And, it was one of those moments that as a parent, you get choked up and you start to tear up. And you could see, like, just through her innocent eyes of a child, there was no judgment when I was sort of judging myself for like, the vanity part of life. And so they've turned into just incredible women that I know are going to make their mark in the world somehow, some way.
I'm sure that being on TEDx, being on multiple Fortune 500 companies, stages, in their offices, in their conference rooms, there's one thing that you see as a challenge that you can speak to for those that are listening. Possibly a first step that they can take. The person who is a bit terrified about stepping out on their journey, on their path, similar to yours, where it's connected to who you are. What would you say to that person?
That's a great question. And because I see it a lot where people are scared to take that risk. I think a large part of it is getting deeper with oneself as far as the conversation that we're having with ourselves. I believe that conversation like we're having now brings us all together. It connects Pelotons and tribes and cultures. But the conversation that we have with ourselves is the most important one. And getting some awareness around that and maybe some honesty, so we can maybe a mentor to help us see what we have inside of us. Because I do believe we all have building blocks inside of us that can lead to making a different impact, whether you stay in your corporate job or not, that you can show up in alignment, show up consistent with your vision for the future, consistent with your values, and live a life that has alignment to it. Because if we don't have alignment, that's when we have some of the most stress. A lot of times when I talk to folks, we talk about their vision for the future, but then we also have a collective inhale, exhale, and just breathe. What I see a lot with a lot of corporate people here in the U.S. is that we're just running 1,000 miles an hour. We're on our hamster wheel and we're not breathing. We're not living a life of awareness. And I believe you can have a wildly successful career and climb up to the highest levels of your company, but you can also breathe along the way. You can do it with awareness and connection and gratitude and resilience. And I think we can do more of that. It actually helps us navigate our world better, and it helps us build more meaningful connections with the people around us. So that's the key, especially in today's world where it's becoming, the pace is faster and the complexities are more intense or more complicated, that we need those people around us. That's why I love your show so much, is that it connects so many people together. It makes the world smaller. And I think once we can change the conversation with ourselves, we can have better conversations with others.
Encountering, experiencing, facing death, and being the individual that walks away from that, is that something you put on the back shelf and you disconnect from the possibility of, hey, I could die today or tomorrow? Or is that a conversation you have every day?
I used to be really scared of death before my accident, and now I've come to accept it, that it's a part of our journey. It's a part of life. Today is the gift, as cliche as it sounds, that I get to choose when I wake up how I want to step into this great big world of ours and the ripple I want to put out there. And so I don't necessarily do it out of fear, like I'm trying to run away from death. I accept that crazy things happen, like what happened to me all those years ago. But now I realize through my gratitude practice what I have and the power that life provides us.
For those that are listening, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So the best place is my website, which is michaelobrienshift.com.
Well, Michael, I am very proud of you. I'm thankful as well to get the opportunity to check in and see where you are. More so to know that you've continued along the path that you've chosen, that you've not given up. In reflection, it is both motivational and inspirational, not just for me, but for everyone that's listening. So thank you for all you do. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, I would just encourage them to breathe a little bit more, to slow down, to go better. And I just want to thank you for having me back on again. It's always great to connect.
Yeah, a pleasure. I treasure. Michael O'Brien, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.